Hey, welcome to another episode of Sports Talk, Law Talk. It is me flying solo today, Byron Brown. And, a couple big pieces of news this morning. Not sure how many people care. I know Forrest cares a lot. Keeping Up with the Kardashians was canceled. And the only headline to rival that is the NFL is back. But, before we started recording, I was bugging Forrest. I didn't know. I knew he was deployed in Afghanistan, but I didn't know Keeping Up with the Kardashians was like one of the only shows that they were able to watch over there. So he begrudgingly admitted to watching it. I was just trying to bust his balls and say that, it was his favorite show. But hey, under the set of circumstances, I'm sure I would have watched it. And I'll be honest, my wife watches that shit all the time. And unfortunately, I get wound up into it. But bigger news, football is back. Some sense of normalcy, at least for me. My Sundays are complete. I'm sure every guy out there feels the same way, man. Sundays are for the boys. They're for to watch football. We got the first game tonight, right, Forrest? We got them tonight. We got the Kansas City Chiefs against the Houston Texans. And I know everybody's excited. I'm excited, man, to see Patrick Mahomes. That young kid can chuck a pigskin like nobody's business. And it's going to be really fun to see him play again. We got the Bucs. A lot of noise being made about the Buccaneers, obviously, with Tom Brady and Gronkowski. We still got the Pats in contention. I think a big storyline all season is going to be Brady and Belichick and how those teams do. Obviously, hometown Cardinals. I believe they're going to have a strong season. I believe they're going to make the playoffs. I'm going to say it. I'm not predicting them make it to the Super Bowl, but I do believe they're going to have a really good season. I think it's going to be one of those seasons that they're able to build on next season. Kyler Murray comes out, has a breakout year. We got Hopkins, which we just signed D-Hop to a 5-year extension. That cat is happy. Cool thing about that, he negotiated the entire deal himself. So props to him for doing that. But really, I think the NFL this season is going to come down to Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I think that's what we're going to be talking about always. We'll always have some other storylines, but it'll always be, how did the Bucs do? How did the Pats do? Are the Pats doing awesome without Brady, a.k.a. Cam Newton's the new guy in town, slinging the pigskin to Edelman? I think Edelman. I believe that they're still going to have a good year. I think the Patriots are going to have a great year. I think the Bucs are going to have a better year than people think, but I don't think the Bucs are going to make the playoffs. I think the Pats are going to make the playoffs. So I'm making my stake here right now for that. But please tune into the games tonight. We'll obviously be talking about it. It's great that they're back. We got the NHL playoffs just winding up, so we'll see how that plays out. I think we're going to see Dallas and Tampa Bay fight it out for the Cup, which I think is going to be a really exciting series. Actually, Dallas is playing Vegas. I think Vegas, it's a good series. I think it's 1-1 if I'm right. And I think we'll see that series go to a Game 7. But at the end, I do believe Dallas will come out on top and be playing Tampa. And we got 2 to 3 weeks left of hockey. And then we got the NFL. So I'm excited for that. I am a Patriots fan, so it's a little bit bittersweet seeing Brady in another jersey, but he's the best quarterback in the league. I think we still have to say. You got the young cats, Lamar Jackson. You got Patrick Mahomes. These guys are coming up, and they're going to take over. But the old cat, Tom Brady, man, he's still alive. And one quarterback to another. Obviously, this quarterback isn't in the league anymore, but Colin Kaepernick, and we're talking about him a lot, as always. But this time we're talking about him because Madden decided to bring him back on the roster. He's on someone's roster, not an NFL roster, but Madden's going to have him back in the game since 2016. Colin Kaepernick has not been in Madden. So Madden 21 is going to feature Kaepernick, and this is going to be something everybody's going to have their thoughts about, right? There's two camps. There's the camp of Kaepernick being awesome, sticking up for what he believes. Then there's the other camp that believes what Kaepernick has done is essentially taking a piss on the police and the military. So we'll see how that plays out. Whenever anybody takes an unpopular stance, which Kaepernick did years ago, they're going to be faced with backlash because they're essentially a disruptor within an industry. And I think that's what Kaepernick did. I think the message he wanted to portray could have been portrayed in a better manner. And then the narratives around that, I think, were fumble fucked by almost everybody involved. to create a situation that I think really never needed to be created. I think what it came down to was Colin Kaepernick saying, hey, listen, enough's enough. I don't believe in his mind it had anything to do with the military or the police. He was simply trying to say our country needs to change. And I'll be honest with you, it needs to fucking change. Tensions are tight. November is going to be a scary month, I think, with the election. But at the end of the day, I mean, we all should just be getting along. I mean, I feel like it's that simple. And I think if you boil it down and if you could ask Kaepernick, I think that's really all he's after, man, is everybody should be treated fairly. Everybody should be treated equally. And, you know, I, for one, have no issue with that. I don't think you can argue with that. We're all equal and we should all be treated that way. And for what Kaepernick's done, he's somewhat of a martyr. And from one martyr to another, we have Iranian wrestler Naveed, and I'm going to butcher this last name, so I apologize in advance, Afghari. But Naveed Afghari in Iran, obviously a country that is not a democracy. The people do not have the freedoms that we have here in America, which we obviously always should be grateful for, but I think we kind of forget at times how much people sacrifice for us to have those freedoms and how those freedoms are not universal. And this Iranian wrestler, Naveed Afghari, is a perfect example of that. And we should look to him and we should take a moment and pause and be proud of where we live and that we don't live in a tyrannical country. And I know we could debate that. But when I say that, I mean, Naveed Afghari got 2 life sentences for stabbing a utility worker. I don't even believe the utility worker, Forrest, can you look that up and see if the utility worker died? I don't even believe the utility worker died. Then this young man went to jail. He got tortured, allegedly, and then he confessed based upon the torture. So this is making a lot of news. Dana White recently posted about it. Brendan Schaub from King and the Sting and Fighter and the Kid, he's also posted about it. But this young man, we're minutes away of watching him get executed in his home country of Iran because he stabbed somebody. He got 2 life sentences for stabbing someone. And if that same crime was committed in America with someone who stabbed someone who has no police record whatsoever, and the person didn't die.
No, he didn't.
He didn't die. So the guy didn't die. So we're looking at and I'm not trying to minimize this. He stabbed someone. Okay, serious offense. 2 death sentences? That's 2 fucking death sentences, man. How do you even do that? What country sentences someone to die twice? With saying that, I mean, we probably do it in America. But the crazy thing is, man, he should not be put to death. Hey, a year or 2, some probation, a fine, some community service, a combination thereof. I get that. But putting this young kid to death for stabbing someone. Again, anti-government protests in 2018. He was involved in those and he stabbed somebody. It's a tragedy. But again, this is something I think that we should look to and learn from and understand, especially with the social tension that we're facing right now. Man, shit could be worse. It could be a lot fucking worse. Like, we got it good. And we should all just take a little inventory of that and support these guys, as much as we can. You do a social post, write the Iranian government, look up what other activities that you can do to support this young man. But when these countries like Iran execute people, what they do is, and this is true of Naveed Afghari, if he actually does get executed, they don't even tell the family where he's getting executed, when he's getting executed. All they get at the end of the day is essentially a letter from the government saying, hey, we killed your son. That's some cold shit, man. I even heard in fucking communist China, I think they even mail the price of the bullet. What are you looking at for us?
So Iran, they put 250 people to death last year. And the only other country that's higher than that is China.
That's crazy. So he doesn't have a mic. We'll get him a mic next time. But he just said Iran last year killed 250 people, executed 250 people, man. That is fucking crazy. Look up what we executed. America. How many people did America execute? But yeah, man, imagine like losing one of your loved ones and then having to pay for the bullet and the time it took for that tyrannical government to execute your loved one. That's crazy, man. That shit doesn't happen in America. It would never happen here. You know, it's great that we fight for people on death row. I mean, that's a harsh reality. But this gets into this debate, right? Is obviously we're a democratic country. And our beliefs, how many America?
Throughout the entire country, 12.
12. So one a month in America. And what's that boil out to? 20 a month. 20 plus a month. 20. So almost one a fucking day in Iran. One a day. Every weekday in Iran, they execute someone. That is fucked up, man. And again, that's the comical thing for me is it's like, we're arguing about all this shit. At least people aren't like getting executed by our government. We could always do better. But I think it's a travesty, obviously. And I hope the young man doesn't die. I hope Iran does what we hope is the right thing, which is that, you don't put this young man to death. So from an international incident over to a more local one, a national one here in America. You got the pound for pound best fighter in the world, boxing, Canelo Alvarez. So he is represented, his promoter is Golden Boy Promotions, a.k.a. Oscar De La Hoya, who we talked about on the last podcast. He has a coke habit, according to Dana White, and he was coming out of retirement, and we thought it was a money grab. And now what's happened, I believe, is a money grab. So Oscar De La Hoya, he represents Canelo Alvarez. Canelo signed one of the biggest fight contracts, I think even athletic contracts, back in the day with DAZN for a total of over $380 million. The lawsuit that got filed is for $280 million. Sorry, he got $380 million was the entire contract. And then he is suing DAZN, Golden Boy Promotions, and Oscar De La Hoya for $280 for money that he says he's owned for past fights. So he's not even talking about future damages. He's just saying, hey, I had these contracts in place and they owe me this money. Now, as these things always play out in the media, we get a little bit of facts at the beginning and then the facts kind of grow. And as a lawyer, when you're looking at these things, facts are almost the most important thing. I mean, yeah, you have the law, but the law in and of itself doesn't do anything. The facts need to be applied to the law to come up with a result. So as we know it right now, this is the facts that are out in the news. Canelo Alvarez has a contract with DAZN, and in that contract, it says Canelo Alvarez, at least for this next fight, and I'm assuming even for other fights, his opponent needs to be a premier opponent. Lawyers love to argue about words, and we'll get back to the word premier. But DAZN is saying they offered up a trilogy fight to Canelo, that trilogy fight being Gennady Golovkin, Triple G. Man, is that guy, he's fucking fun to watch. If you have not seen Triple G box, watch him box and you'll be a fan of boxing, man. He's fast, he's action-packed, he's always throwing punches, he's always coming forward. Probably why Canelo's dodging him, because if you believe DAZN, that's exactly what Canelo's doing, is dodging Triple G. And he's said, Canelo has said, hey, I'm willing to fight some fighters, but I think the fighters that he's identified are out of the top 10. So getting back to the word premier, what is a premier fighter? I would say a premier fighter is anybody within the top 10, but maybe you could always say that of the top 20. But that is something that is going to be fought over, and lawyers are going to bill a lot of money arguing over the word premier. So we'll see how that plays out. DAZN is saying that they offered him Triple G and he turned down Triple G, which, I mean, if he fought Triple G, Canelo versus Triple G right now would be a huge, huge fight. And you understand why DAZN's doing this, right? DAZN just jumped into the world of live sports a couple years ago, and they dumped a ton of money into this stuff. Well, pandemic hit, and like it's impacted a lot of people, I believe it's impacted DAZN. So there might be some incentive on the part of DAZN to try to get out of this contract too. My gut says if that were what was happening, then they might have approached Canelo before to try to negotiate a settlement before filing the lawsuit. Typically, what parties do before filing a lawsuit is they try to informally resolve the dispute through settlement discussions. But a lot of times, people don't see eye to eye. I'm sure you've each had an argument with your friend that you bring in another friend and you give them each side of your event, and that person makes the best call they can. That's really what happens in these legal disputes too, is they're both going to present facts and then the judge is going to make a decision. Now, does that mean we're going to get to that point? Meaning, are we going to get to the point where a judge has to make a decision on this dispute? I do not believe so. I think you take DAZN's history of probably losing a shit ton of money because of the pandemic. You got Oscar De La Hoya coming out of retirement. At his age, his last fight was Pacquiao, 10, 15 years ago, and he got his ass handed to him. So I don't know about you, but if I got my ass handed to me in something, I wouldn't be really excited to jump back into that ring, literally the ring, to make money unless I had to. So you got Oscar De La Hoya, which seems to have some motive for money. He needs it. You got DAZN losing a shit ton of money. And then you have Canelo saying he wants to fight, but he doesn't want to fight the opponent that DAZN and maybe his promotion wants him to fight. His other argument within this whole dispute is that Golden Boy Promotions said he would fight Triple G, not he himself, which again gets into a little bit of the law, right? There's an agent-principal relationship. So if you're an agent for somebody, so when you retain a lawyer, you're the principal and the lawyer's the agent. The lawyer can't do anything without the principal's permission. And then the lawyer has the appearance of authority because of their professional reputation. Then they send out a letter confirming representation of the individual. It's the same sort of thing within an agent-athlete relationship. If your agent, aka or promoter, says something, it's reasonable for DAZN to rely upon that assertion of your promotion and or agent that that's coming from you, or they have the authority to speak on your behalf. And I think that's what happened. So I don't think if that argument on Canelo's part that says, that him saying, hey, Oscar De La Hoya promised you shit, I didn't. I think that falls flat on its face. But again, going back to what I said earlier, I don't believe this is inside the courtroom for much time at all. I think that they're going to resolve the dispute, and I think that they're going to resolve the dispute relatively quickly. So it'll be interesting to see how that dispute plays out. And we got football back, and we got, a civil suit with Canelo to criminal charges with Deandre Baker and Quentin Dunbar. I think you guys might have remembered this. This was in the news a ways back. Baker and Dunbar allegedly showed up at a party and were armed with a handgun and robbed the people at the party. The people at the party then went to the police, made statements identifying Baker and Dunbar as the two. And then what's happened recently is Baker charges have continued. He's got four robbery charges that he's currently facing. However, the charges against Quentin Dunbar, they have said, open quotes, insufficient evidence related to Quentin Dunbar. So it appears when we look back on the statements made by people at the party, they were very certain of Deandre Baker, not very certain about Quentin Dunbar. And when you see this in any situation with a city prosecutor or a federal prosecutor pursuing charges against somebody, they never want to lose. So if they think they're going to lose, they're just not going to proceed with the charges. So that's why whenever you hear a prosecutor talk about the record, saying that they've won 50 in a row or whatever it is, it's easy when you pick fights you know you're never going to lose, right? Like the bully at school. The bully never picks on someone that is going to shit can him, they're going to pick on people that they believe they can shit can. Well, essentially that's prosecutors. And I'm not talking shit about the prosecutors, but that is the way it is. So it appears that Deandre Baker is going to be going all the way through the system with these 4 robbery charges. I'm not sure if he has a criminal history, but the 4 robbery charges, I don't think you're going to see that cat play in the league being the NFL again. They're not putting up with this shit anymore. In the past, I think they were guilty of it. Now, Deandre Baker, you will not see him play another snap. And I think the same is going to be true of Quentin Dunbar. Now, Quentin Dunbar was on the commissioner's exempt list, and he was removed off of the list because of the insufficient evidence, and the charges were dropped. But then Seattle dropped him from their roster. That's who he was with at the time. Now, his agent has made statements. Hey, I'm excited. Hey, I think that we're going to be able to get him something. Brian, hit the camera. Fucking Brian, Forrest? Like, how much do you, like, we put up with him? Like, he's a nice enough guy, but fuck. Like, he's right there. Like, we should show where he's sitting. He has and his fat elbow bumps the camera. Right, Brian?
You were correct.
Like that was your only job right now is maybe not to bump the camera.
My bad.
So anyways, Seattle drops Quentin Dunbar. I don't think you're going to see anyone else pick up Quentin Dunbar. As soon as these guys get charges like that, and they're substantiated to some degree, and Quentin Dunbar, I bet in the NFL mind and everyone else's mind, all the other teams' minds, he's guilty by association. So the fact that the charges weren't pursued against him, that in and of itself doesn't mean anything. For criminal charges to be successful within the system, the prosecutor, the state, they have to prove them beyond a reasonable doubt. To give you perspective on that, essentially that means if you're a juror on that case, hearing the robbery charges, you have to be like 99% sure of the criminal charges. So when you think about that standard, you see why prosecutors drop cases, because if they're essentially not guaranteed a win, then they're not going to win because that's the standard. Now, in a civil suit, like Canelo Alvarez civil suit, you got to prove it beyond a preponderance of the evidence. So preponderance of the evidence, like, the scales, it's just a little bit. It's just a little bit in favor of Canelo, and Canelo wins. But on the criminal side of things, the state has to prove their case by a very large margin. If not, almost confirm to guarantee. And the idea within the criminal justice system, although the criminal justice system is broken, and this isn't true, it's the criminal justice system would rather have 9 guilty people not convicted than 1 innocent person go to jail. That's what I was taught in law school. But it doesn't really seem the case in practice because, unfortunately, as of late, we see a lot of people who've had their convictions overturned because of DNA, shoddy investigation. What is it? Catching a Murder, whatever the fuck that show was on Netflix. We've seen it firsthand. So, unfortunately, that's not the way it works. But the utopic idea of our criminal justice system is just that. So, I got no issue with it. I get it. Like, if there's some doubt in a criminal case and you're talking about people's lives, like months, years, maybe their entire life being in a cell, the life that those prisoners have to live, I, for one, if you go, we got to make sure that you're really fucking guilty. We don't want this like half guilt. That's not the way it works. So when we hear some of this stuff from the outside perspective, I think we go, listen, there's enough evidence here for a charge. There's enough evidence. You got to remember, and I'm not saying this as a dick. You're not a lawyer, man. You're not the prosecutor. And the prosecutor knows things that we don't because not everything comes out in the media, and they're making a decision. Listen, if that prosecutor thinks that they can put someone in jail 9 times out of 10, they're going to pursue those charges. But I believe as soon as it starts dropping below 9 times out of 10, those are the times that you see someone plea to something you think's ridiculous. And what I mean by that is, you hear someone who's charged with robbery and there's a video of them robbing a store and then you hear they get community service. Well, there's a lot of things that go into that. Maybe the police mishandled that investigation. Maybe the police didn't bag the evidence properly. Maybe someone didn't read someone's charges properly. All of those things are in place within the criminal justice system to ensure that innocent people don't go to jail. And again, admittedly, that isn't fucking working. So there's got to be a change. But when we're looking at these things, look at them at that, on the criminal side of things. If it's not a slam dunk, you're not going to see a prosecutor pursue it all the way to trial. If it's not a slam dunk, what you're going to see is that prosecutor enter into some plea deal that you're going to probably think is a fucking stupid deal. But that prosecutor, in his or her opinion, they believe that that's the best that they can do. And it goes down to the definition of a bargain, right? Someone usually pays more and someone usually takes less. And that's what happens. And the prosecutor probably wants a little bit more punishment. And the alleged criminal obviously wants no or little. And then they find a happy place in the middle. It's just like selling your car on fucking eBay or anything like that. You usually end up in the middle. NBA bubble news. So listen, we thought, who's the cat? I forget. There was another cat in the NBA bubble. Those guys must be horny because they're trying to sneak people in all the time. And this is a new one, right? But if anyone's going to do this, it's going to be a professional athlete. There's a female COVID tester. And Mr. Daniel House Jr., Danwell, Danuel. What would you say? Danwell? Danwell? Never seen it spelled like that. But, that's awesome. Danwell House Jr., he allegedly had a female COVID tester in his room. So I don't think you need to be within the medical field to know that these testings are done in a private area, not in someone's hotel room, especially when they're in the NBA bubble. And, you don't have to be in the NBA bubble to understand that the NBA probably have a conference room that's set wide open with chairs spaced 12 fucking feet apart and COVID testers going up and down, swabbing your nose, your mouth, or whatever else to determine if you have COVID. So if it was common for COVID testers to come to someone's rooms, this wouldn't even be newsworthy. So we know that COVID testers don't go to people's rooms. We know that the NBA had something set up. So I think the logical conclusion here is the elephant in the room is Mr. House Jr., he wanted to take it to the house with this COVID female tester, right? I mean, and look at, I guess that's a problem, right? Like, if you're a professional athlete, you kind of get whatever you want whenever you want, right? You're a millionaire. You can buy whatever you want. You got people throwing themselves at you all the time. And these guys, for the first time, are restricted in what they can do. So this isn't surprising. The only thing surprises to me, and to be honest, is we don't hear more of it. If we're hearing about it, which we are, I guarantee it's happening more than we're hearing about. Professional athletes are known. What's up?
Yeah, but with that, the whole team had to go into a quarantine period because of his act.
Yeah.
So once again, it's a selfish thing.
100%.
It affect everybody.
Right? And that's the thing. The other guy, they actually kicked out of the bubble for that exact reason, though, because then the teammates get pissed. So then the teammates that are actually restraining themselves, going through this, almost self-imposed purgatory, I'd be pissed, right? Like my wife's not there, my kids aren't there, my dogs aren't there. I'm not getting the coffee I want every fucking morning. And then there's this cat over here, throwing skin parties behind everybody's back. I mean, it would bother me, and I'm sure it bothers his teammates. It's a dick move. You put yourself above the team. These guys are sacrificing a ton, and it's not like this is the beginning of the bubble, guys. We're getting closer and closer to the Holy Grail, to the championship. So very selfish decision, very immature decision in my mind for Mr. House Jr. to make. And hopefully, like a lot of us, you just got to make better decisions. Make better decisions, Mr. House Jr. I mean, I get it, but when you're in the bubble and you're getting paid a shit ton of money, and there's a lot of people out there that don't have their jobs and they just wish they could work and make a living, you kind of take a piss on everyone when you make those immature decisions. So that's a wrap today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's short and it's quick. I think that's all that's needed. If you have any questions, if you have any articles, you have anything that you want me to digest and talk about, please leave it in the comments and questions below. And until next time, thanks for tuning in.